Okay, you should have all turned in your industry, competitive analysis, and target market. Remember what I was looking for, competitive analysis, that we were looking that you did a matrix. We were looking for in the target market that it was actually calculated out, and then with information saying what those different variables are, along with the other areas in those chapters. I will go through these as quickly as I can, try to provide as much feedback as I can, and then I'll probably do a summary that'll go out. These were the common things that I saw there were problems with, whether it's a citation problem or how things were addressed, and then you'll have that to look at, so that if you didn't make that mistake the first time, that you'll see to look and make sure that you don't in future. And there's things I said on there. I don't want the word very, really, about, kind of, sort of, all those things. Period goes at the end of the citation, not at the end of the sentence. Yes?
You might have covered this before, but do you have any requirements on how many citations you want?
I don't have any requirements on how many citations, and I don't have any requirements on the number of pages, just how many it takes. Now, I suspect you can't do a good industry analysis with 2 or 3. Yeah. Okay? So I'm not going to measure it. Yeah. I don't want it all just to be IBIS World, or just even Ezra. Go out of that. I think Google Scholar is something amazing that all of you could have used. I don't have a number, and like I always say, if you can do a good analysis with 3 or 4, great. If it takes more, that's fine too. But I don't have any set sources on that. The other thing I want to say is I'm really going to count on all of you, including the online students, to give each other good feedback. Okay, when you do your peer review. Good feedback doesn't mean good job. Okay? What was good? Get them thinking. I don't understand how this sentence, rework this sentence, it's unclear, okay? Or the citation seems to not be properly formatted, or the reference sheet doesn't look properly formatted. Or have you thought about, when this craze is over, where are you going to move your business to next? Or reading your industry analysis, it says you're in a dying industry. Can you please explain why you might be doing that? Okay? You get graded on not only putting your draft in, but you get graded on your feedback for your peers. And I'm going to be a little stricter than normal on that there is a lot of good feedback there, because I need your help in getting through 3 classes of getting this done. So I want to be able to provide you with feedback, but I also want you guys to do it to each other. And giving other people feedback is the best way to learn yourself, because it gets you thinking, wow, I can look at this one objectively and think about this. Did I do that on my own? And go back and take a look. All right? We had a superstar, saw you on the news, talking about the new building. What a cool logo on the front of the building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It turned out really nice.
Yeah. It's what is the full name of it?
Rogue Air Trampoline Park.
Yeah. Say it again.
Rogue Air.
Rogue Air Trampoline Park. Yeah, it's right there next to Tinseltown. I'm really thinking that's going to help that area, because now they've got an ice cream place, they've got a sandwich shop, they've got the theater, and now this. I think it's going to be a family type of environment there. That location has gone through some harsh times. Yeah, it's been everything. I think it was originally Circuit City. Yeah, and I don't know what it was before then, if anything. I think they added that part on. But nice job. Nice presentation on the news. I'm a little disappointed that you didn't talk about Southern Oregon University and the School of Business. I kept waiting for you to weasel that in somehow, but you didn't do that. But no, good job. So I think what I'll do is go ahead and talk about the next sections that are due. And then once I get all the papers back, which I usually try to do by the next class meeting, but it's not going to happen in this case. But when I do give them back, then we'll talk about them again so that you're clear on what you need to change. So I want to give you some kind of feedback before the next set's due. But at this point, I don't even want to guarantee that, because I'm not sure I can do that for all of you. That's why I'm asking that you give each other some good feedback and see and make sure sure that you're getting that. And again, some of the common things are the wording, using numbers inappropriately, starting a sentence with numbers and all that, and then we get to the real content. Did you provide enough evidence here to believe this could be a sustainable and viable business? And did you look at your target market that matches also, where you are in the competition? So all those things come together. I spent a lot of time talking to a lot of the online students on the phone with the total market potential. They saw the same lecture you did, and I didn't get as much questions from you guys. So I'm hoping that means you're okay with how to put that together. And again, remember, this is a draft. This is the opportunity to put it out there, let us give you feedback, and so you can make it better next time. But without that feedback, you can improve. And I am holding the line. If they were not in at midnight last night, I'm not, if you can't hold up to your end of the bargain, I'm not holding up to making it a rush. I'll try to look at it at some point, but it is definitely at the bottom of the list, unfortunately, and you won't get points for the draft. Yes?
Can I have you reiterate the TMP? If I already calculated the age 50 plus and the location and all that and the
Population?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, that's one thing we'll give you feedback on. Maybe you've already narrowed it there enough that we don't get to the sales potential, so we probably need to back up and make that population more broadly, then take those. Yeah, and that's a question a lot of people. Now, like we were talking about, I think we used the wedding example, bridal shops, that, why take the whole population, then figure out how many are female that are going to buy a dress and how many then are going to get married. Why don't we just take the population of how many people got wedding license last year, and say, okay,
well, I divided it all by 0.25.
Okay. Well, those 0.25s and whatever percentages needed to be defined in the census. You can't just make up there's 0.25 of the people that make an income between this. All these numbers have to come from reliable sources. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about today strategy, development and exit plan, and then the marketing plan. And as we'll see, again, we can't just put the stuff we've already talked about aside. Now we're coming into, all right, we talked about the competition, we talked about the target market. What's our strategy for bringing this together? What does the industry allow? What do I need to do? And I think what happens, and this is some information I pulled up, is that we start just kind of brainstorming about a strategy. There are defined types of strategies that I'd like for you to identify. Because a business strategy is typically a document that clearly articulates the direction of the business. Okay, where are we going with this and how are we going to get there? And there's lots of and I expect that not only will you read the part on strategy in your book, but you'll also go to some of your other books, particularly your 427 book has types of competitive strategies. You may go with that. Some that you may remember, low-cost provider strategy. You really have to have a reason. Remember we talked about cost isn't something that you want to go for if it's pretty much the same across the board. Why leave money on the table? We also have a broad differentiation strategy, that being different. Okay, you can still have competitors doing, but how are you really going to be different that people are going to say, wow, I was loyal to this company and they do the same thing, but you just convinced me to go over to what you're doing. And we also have a focused low-cost strategy and a focused differentiation strategy, which is different than the broad differentiation, and then a best cost strategy. And those are just some types of strategies, but there's lots of ways. There's other types of strategies in your other books, crafting strategies, lots of different ways. But go online and look at business strategies. I want you to identify your strategy, not just start talking about it. What type of strategy? Are you taking a differentiation type of strategy, cost leader, quality, customers? What strategy are you going to take? And I want to clearly articulate it, the strategy that you're going to present. The strategy actually defines who you are, okay? How are you going to get to all of this other stuff if you don't have a plan? It's kind of like, okay, here's what we want to do. Now let's get together and write the plans to get there. So the strategy is the planning part, to lay it out, to make sure how are we going to be successful? How are all these ideas that we have, how are we strategically going to get to that point? And again, not only does it define what you're going to do, it also defines what you aren't going to do. Okay, you can't be everything to everybody. So when we talk about what you are going to do, that means your strengths, your interest, also comes back into play the industry trends, okay, that you probably already, market changes and the opportunities. If you looked at it and looked ahead, as I said, always forward thinking. You know, is that a strategy you're going to implement on what you're going to do? I'm going to be ahead of the game by doing what? Your competition's changing in opportunities. You got to be aware of the competition coming in. How are you going to stay on top of that? And changes in opportunities brought through new technologies. And some of you, that may be a bigger part than not. Okay, some of you, it may not play a part at all. But got to remember, technology comes in many forms. You know, whether it's a way to be more efficient, way it's going to change the whole industry that you're in, or way you're going to utilize the technology in your favor. So don't just think about, well, I just need a laptop and some software and I'm good to go. Is that true, and what's going to happen? I mean, we're probably not going to have robots anytime soon where you sit in a chair and they say, press some buttons, I want to look like that person, and chop, chop, chop. But are there other technologies on a lower scale for a barbershop opposed to what else that would have more technology based in it? Shoes, right? That's a lot of technology. What's going on? How can they produce the shoes better, lighter, fit more comfortably? And like, I don't know if you're going to have in your shoe store like they do downtown, but the technology where you run on a treadmill and it tracks you and then finds the best shoe for you. So that's technology in the shoe industry that probably 10 or 15 years ago we never thought technology was going to be as big a part. So not only is it playing a part at the manufacturer end, now it's playing a part right at the store. And so technology can really be an issue. Again, what you don't want, things that you don't want to do in your business is also part of your strategy. Strategy position is more than your advertising, right? We have different types of strategies. From the competitive strategies I just talked about, we also have customer perception. Okay, is that your strategy? Are you going to be based on customer perception factors? Or a market segment? Or market share? You know, what are you going for here? Or operational and technology advantages, which we also just mentioned. Sales channels, proprietary products, patents. Or what's going to be your strategy? To come in with a patent, to come in with something that only you can do. So those are all strategies. So when we talk about customer perception, what are we talking about? How do customers perceive your business? What would be some examples? What do you, yes, Fred?
For example, for the home care industry, if you go to web comparison sites, you always find the section from the government surveys, and you find the section, I figured it out as like, if the former customer would recommend the organization to do the latest.
Yeah. So someone who's looking to seek your business expects that information would be there. Yeah, Addie?
Oh, just like your customer service, like in food truck, like what would I do to deal with an unsatisfied customer, or
yeah. Or what's the perception of how you deal with it? You know, what's your perception of, or what's the customer's perception of your quality or your pricing? Remember we talked about all those need to match? I know I keep reiterating, but when we go to Motel 6, our perception isn't to have a mint on the pillow, but we go to a 4-star hotel, it is. So the perception of the quality can be in the things you do. You go into a doctor's office and you've heard this is the best doctor in the world, and you go into the doctor's office and you feel like you just walked into somebody's garage, you get really confused because the perception should be this office should have artwork on the wall. This office should, you know, so perception is a lot. So how it's perceived right? And Mark, in your business, you want to perceive safety
Yeah.
when you walk in, and you want to let them see how you've addressed safety issues. Okay? Yes?
I don't know if it's a word, but perception, sensibility. For example, if I go to a food cart and the food wasn't good, then I get a free drink. Probably my perception is still okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're like in the healthcare and your company fails once,
Yeah.
you probably there's
That's
no
true.
way to make it happen.
And we talk about that where people are willing to drive farther for childcare because it's more important the safety of the child than it is, I'll try your food court out, your cart, and if it's not good, then I'll go somewhere else. It's not as strong as, because some people may like it and some may not. But if you're saying I'm going to put a relative in a facility to care for them, and some said, some I liked it, some it wasn't so good, that's a bigger statement than whether it's food or not. Okay. So we have price, quality, your features are also part of customer perception. Of course, your customer service, which we're going to talk a lot more about. The social impact. Addie mentioned that she's going to have that this beef is all organic type beef. How else are you going to let your customers know that what your social impact is? Whether it's environmental or do you test animals? What kind of products are you going to use hair product wise? Are you going to make sure the hair products are only non-animal tested products? Is that something that you want a perception to be? Or is your market even care about that? So the whole perception. Do I get taken care of as a one-on-one customer when I come in? Okay. Are you going to take the care to make sure the etching on the tombstone for my animal is precise and not look at it, well, it's just an animal, name's misspelled, or the etching's a little off. Are you going to take that kind of care? And so I think you really need to think about your image and how the customer perceives you. And convenience. Some of you, convenience needs to be an issue. Some of them do not. Okay? And I think you probably know. Tina, would you think your business is a convenience type of business?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
And most of them that I found out there are only open Monday through Friday. There's very few that are open on Saturdays, and I only saw one open on Sundays that was part-time.
Okay. So convenient, and you're doing pet care, like daycare, right?
Yeah.
So convenience would be a perception, but what more than that? What's a bigger perception that people want to know when they're taking their animal somewhere?
Well, cleanliness would be a good thing.
Cleanliness,
And their safety too.
their safety, and that there's going to be some compassion, that they're going to treat your animal and not ignore it over in the corner if it's having a hard time. So those are the things that are probably totally different from some of the other businesses. So you need to be aware of those types of things. So all of you have different things that you want the customer to perceive you by. And then market share, or market segment, I'm sorry, that's really your geographic location. And some of you, geographic location, Mark, is geographic location important to you when you decided to put the trampoline business there?
Yeah.
Why? What was appealing about that location?
There's a lot of people that walk, at the movie theater. There's a couple other locations that we looked at that were kind of farther out, but it's about where you are. People know where you are.
Yeah, centrally located. And also you can say in the Red Robin, in the Tinseltown location, in the Sears, so location may be important, and others, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go that extra mile because of health issues, safety issues, or they're the best shoes, or it's the best gym in town, or whatever it is, we're going to go into that even more. The age, the income, the interest, family size, consumer served, it's definitely things you need to look at. The age and size and or the industry of the business. So customer specialized needs. How are you going to segment that market into something that makes you unique? It talks about the pitfalls in targeting a market segment, and that the market size may not be big enough. And And I think we talked about that in our target market too. If we narrow it too much, there's not enough business there to be sustainable and viable. And so generally, healthcare, we always look at all the baby boomers are getting to that stage, or in this particular area, we have a large retirement in Medford and Ashland. There's a very large retirement community. In other areas, I think Arizona has some places, in Florida too, that are very large retirement areas. So you need to make sure that you're locating in those places, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, for example, for my business, that has my max capacity is around like 1% of the market share.
Yeah.
And if my potential market share is about 10%. So
yeah. Yeah, you've got a lot of room to grow. One thing to bring up about capacity that I remember talking to some people over the phone about, you are not going to hit full capacity your first year. Okay? Let me restate that. You would have a hard sell on me that you did. Okay? Why is that? Why is it I do not believe you'll hit full capacity that first year? Addie?
Because you're new, we weren't gonna know about it.
You're new?
You gotta grow with the reputation.
Sure. People need to know where you are, build up some loyalty. But what else? What if you do hit it? What's the problem?
Expanding too quickly.
What's that?
Having an expansion that happens too quickly.
Or the worst part,
Not being able to sustain.
yeah.
if you get too much assets, or you need, for example, in the barbershop, you have core places, and you have full capacity the first year,
Yeah.
you need to expand. You need more.
Yeah,
space,
that's
but
poor
maybe
planning,
there's
right?
No more space in your
Right.
office.
And it's poor planning. I've over advertised or over marketed, and the worst thing anybody wants is to go, wow, I'm going to try this place out, but I can't get in. Okay? How many chances do customers give you before they say never mind? I'm getting kind of like that with the Buffalo Wings place. You know, you have to really, if I think, oh, it's Friday, no, forget it. I'm not even going to go there. Oh, it's, Monday at 2 o'clock. I probably have a chance. Okay? So I think some of that is the newness. We thrive to have good new restaurants in the valley. So I'm hoping some of that will wear off. But after a while, I'm just going to probably get it off my radar. Okay? So the worst thing you can do is over-advertise your business. So you're either over-advertising, or you haven't set up your facility proper to maintain and haven't reviewed the market or looked at the competition or targeted your market properly, that if you immediately hit capacity, that's poor planning. Now, it's a wonderful problem to have if you can adjust very quickly and get in, like Frederick said, 10 more chairs. Or the place next to me is available, I can knock down the wall real quick and rent that place too. But the worst thing you can do is box yourself in and have to turn people away.
Yeah, I have a question to this. When I'm figuring out my capacity, I was thinking basically my capacity is unlimited because I don't have any assets. Like, I do home care, so basically I work at people's homes.
Your capacity is limited by your number of employees. How many people can you care for?
But I can adjust like that. If there's too many demand, I can just hire more nurses.
Yeah, but be careful. There's not, how many in this room feel they're in a position to do healthcare? I mean, so they're not a dime. Well, I'd have to really think about you walking up to my door and taking care of me. But I mean, what I'm saying is they're not a dime a dozen. You don't go to the store and buy some more. So finding people in the healthcare healthcare industry is, they're begging people to go to nursing school and to be certified and stuff. So you are limited such, yes, you could go buy more and do more, but you don't want to get out of control that you're not hiring people that are going to have the same culture and customer service and all of that, and that are certified and available, because the older population is growing faster than the younger population. So there always is some capacity issues. Yeah. Market share, we've talked about that. How are you going to get the market share? That's part of your strategy. Again, all of these first movers, are you going to do any branding? Are you going to do any type of patenting or copyright or any of those things that can maybe secure some market share for yourself. There's also risk involved. And I think for you to say there's no risk involved in your business is maybe a little bit naive to say, a lot naive to say. And if you were to present your business plan to a banker and they say, so tell me all the risk. Now you don't want to go overboard with more risk than benefits because you just talked them out of it. But also, if you don't think that there's risk, then they're going to look at you that, okay, you're not real sure what you're in for because every business has risk, okay? Whether that risk is inherent in the business or that you can maybe have some control over and minimize it, maybe not. Market risk. I mean, we can try our best to get everything out to the people and make sure that we can, but what if the market just does not respond to you? Okay, that's risk. Competitive risk. All of a sudden 10 new competitors came up the minute you signed the contract for your building. Okay, how are you going to mitigate some of this? You can't eliminate it, but you can talk about how you can mitigate it. Technology risk. That's a huge one for a lot of people. Product risk. Somebody else just came out with a product and looks a lot like yours, but works a lot better and is a lot less expensive. How are you going to deal with those things? Another type of risk is executing the business. You know, making sure that it got off. You know, you may not execute it properly. You may not get the right message out there. So we need to make sure that you're executing the business. That can have some risk. People just don't respond to you. And then capitalization risk. I think all businesses have that risk. We just didn't have enough cash flow to maintain, or we didn't look at this correctly and take enough of a loan, whatever it is. But I think to ignore that there's risk is a real downfall. Again, you don't want to sit there for 2 hours and talk about, man, this is a risky business. I have a chance of losing this, and it's a really good possibility I could lose this and this and this. But you also don't want to be naive and go in there with, oh, there's no risk. This is a sure shot. Any banker in the world is going to go, okay, next. Because if you're not open enough to realize there's risk and that you're going to need to deal with that risk, and how are you going to mitigate it or minimize it in some way, would be very naive. So not only are you going to express what the risk may be inherent to your business, but how can you try to minimize that risk somewhat? You can't always eliminate it. And then the whole idea, especially if you're talking to someone investing, how do you balance the benefits and the risk? You know, there are risks, this is how we're going to try to mitigate them, but the opportunity is higher. You know, how are we going to look at that? We don't need it to be balanced, but how are we going to, you know, it's just like saying when I grade your paper, here's all the good things you did, but here's the things that you need to improve upon. You really need to balance, right? We always talk about when you're going to evaluate someone, you say something good, then you say something that needs improvement, you always leave it with something good. So their first impression when they sat down was good. They heard it because they already know you appreciated what was good about them, and then you never want them leaving with their head down. You always then come back with something good. So I think that's the same when you're trying to sell your business to an investor or just sell it to the public. That you do realize the benefits or the opportunities outweigh the risk, or you wouldn't be doing it, right? So make sure that you just don't get caught up in the whole risk part of it. So really defining your strategy, and like I said, whether that means going on the internet and saying strategic positions for small business, strategic positioning for whatever your type of business is in that industry, look at some of those. But I really want the strategy defined as a type of strategy. This is the approach and the strategy I'm going to take. It's really going to articulate the direction in which I want this business to go. You good on strategy? It becomes a little bit difficult for students to grasp that, but there are defined strategies. There's some in the book, there's some that I just read as competitive type of strategies too. But make sure that you're looking at that. Okay, chapter 15 talks about the development milestones and the exit plan. I know it's a little early to be talking about our exit plan, but I'll explain to you why that's important. The development and where do you want to go with your business? What do you hope in the business will look like in 5, 10 years, or even the second year? You know, we talk about by year 3, we hope to bring on maybe another region we're going to bring in, or we're going to have another store in another area, or we're going to bring on some more employees, or we're going to implement some new things, or we're going to make sure by year 2 all of our employees are trained in some particular aspect. Okay, so we got to think about what those development milestones need to be. What are our goals? Are we going to be innovative? We're going to be a quality leader? Are we going to try to be the market leader? Are we going to be niche? You know, what are our goals? Where do we want to head with this business? And like I said, it can be 1 year, 2 years, or 10 years. Of course, our plan is only going to cover 3 years, so if you implement new employees or new expansions during that, that'll be included. But you can also in this section say by year 10, if the business is still showing a profit, you know, we intend to do whatever. But the description is in the 3 years. Again, here's some more strategies of your milestones. You know, market penetration. How are you going to gain a foothold in the market? Promotion and support. Expansion. Increase your focus. You know, narrow-scoped activities are kind of good at first, but after a while you say, okay, we're doing well at that. What else do we want to expand in and do even further? You know, maybe you start offering dessert. Maybe you start offering pedicures. Maybe so you expand to different areas. You know, maybe you start offering classes or whatever it is. But how are you going to expand? And how are you going to diversify? You know, I'm doing just organic now, and now I'm going to diversify into gluten. Or what's the next fad coming up that we think we all need to adjust our diets for? You know, what is the diversity we're going to give our business? And then not only increasing your focus, but then refocusing yourself. Right? You constantly need to be reinventing your business and staying up with what's going on. How we did something one time may not be working in 3 years. And I need to adjust and refocus. To be very narrow-minded and straight-focused will talk you, get you right out of business, because business is constantly changing, no matter what it is. Healthcare, dog sitting. You know, now I think the big thing with dog sitting or dog care or dairy care or any of those kennel things is a video camera, and they're doing that with children as well. And if you don't want to do that, it's not okay anymore to answer, oh, we just don't have the means for that technology. Because what do I hear as an owner of an animal or of a child? Yeah, what are you covering up here? You know, when before it was, okay, nobody has that technology, but it'd be really cool if you had it. We're getting to a point now that just saying we don't provide that is sending a different message other than that's not something we want to do. Yes?
On the pet care thing, I know at R&R Pet Resort, like it's a big part of their grooming and their play areas is everything is glass walls. So an owner can come at any time and see, and they can always keep an eye on how their employees interact with the dogs. Just because some people, get frustrated and they don't keep an eye on it. So it's a big deal. Yeah, it is. I think we're getting that way even with our cars. You notice going to a lot of automotive places now, it's glass you can watch. You know, restaurants where you can see through the glass to see how your food's being cooked. Somehow makes us feel more comfortable than what is going on back there. You know, I was in a couple of the restaurants in Mexico and had to walk through the kitchen to get to the bathroom and wished I had. You know, you're just like, okay, it hasn't killed me yet. I'll just keep eating it. I think that's why the food's so hot, because it'll kill anything if it doesn't kill you first. So anyway, so we have different expectations. We have different expectations here in the U.S. than we'd have in a third world country, as Mexico is, right? There's no stop signs, and there are. I remember trying to
the person who was driving, and I said, Eva, wasn't that just the stop sign? She said, yeah, your Spanish is getting good. I said, but you didn't stop. She said, are you kidding me? The guy behind me would run into me if I did. You know, so there's different expectations. It all works. I saw a guy dangling from the side of the building with no hard hat, no rope, no nothing. I thought, I started sweating. I couldn't even watch him any further. You know, they don't wear helmets even though it's the law. Lots of different things are going on in different places. So I think we do need to make sure. That's another thing, customer perception. I expect to be able to check in on my child at any time. I expect to be able to check in on my animal, or check in and know what food's going on, or come sit in a class that's being given before I go in. We all want to see it, right? We want to take tours of gyms first. We want to understand what's going on. And we find that it's now considered our right. Right? If you remember not that many years ago in healthcare, no, you need to wait outside. We're the professionals. And now we've realized that we need to be our own advocates for ourselves and have other people that are advocates there with us when we go through medical things. Before it was you'll wait outside. I remember when I was a small child, I playing goofy around, and somehow one of the guys bucked me off his back, and I hit the dresser and got stitches, and here I was little, and my mother was not allowed to go back there with me. And that was terrifying enough to know I'd never been in a hospital before, and I was having stitches, and somehow my mother, I don't know, maybe she was acting like a crazy woman, not hysterical, and they didn't let her go back. But I think back then they didn't. You know, you wait out here. And so our expectations now are we're proactive in everything we do, and we find it's our right to know things. I want to see where my dog's going to be all day. I want to see how they interact with my family member. You know, I want to see everything before we commit to anything. What are your priorities as far as, your strategies? What are the specific actions that you're going to take? And they have on here a page, a worksheet about priorities. Is it adding employees? Is it adding new lines to your products? Is it increasing your marketing? Adding locations, adding capacity? And what are your priorities here? Do you want to expand? Do you want to have 10 trucks? Do you want to have a facility that you get 200, people coming into the gym? Do you want it to be more of a quaint and small and just more intimate and personable experience, that expanding isn't your idea? Do you want to get to a point where your inventory in shoes is even larger so that they never have to go online to buy a pair of shoes or go somewhere else? What is it that your goals are and your priorities for those? And your milestones achieved to date, a lot of you will say, well, I don't have any milestones achieved to date. Well, you really do. Because if you did your assignment over the weekend, you've already done an extensive industry analysis. That's more than most people going into business do. Okay? You may have even secured a location that you're thinking about. You may have even secured purchase orders that people are already going to buy stuff from you. Okay? So there are some milestones. You've at least identified the location, you identified your target market. So there are some milestones. There are not many at this point because you haven't started, but you've got a date when your business is going to start, you've analyzed it, and so you do have some milestones there. There's maybe some equipment that you already own that you're going to use in your business. So there are some. And then of course future milestones. You definitely want to mention what the future milestones will be. So it lists here, what type of business are you going to be? Are you going to be incorporated? That's a milestone to date. You've already decided. Where your funding's going to come from, you probably have already started thinking or secured your funding. So lots of things. Have you put your patents in place yet, or your trademarks? Those would be all things, achievements to date. And then talking about future milestones, do you want to change to be incorporated? Do you want to produce a product completely? Maybe now you're just getting pieces and using other people's stuff. Lots of different things of where your future milestones will go. And again, risk evaluation. Risk keeps coming into play here. But investors make financial decisions based on an evaluation of the potential risks versus the potential rewards. So you got to make sure you're mentioning the risk, because with saying none, it is not a way to go. And it refers you back to chapter 9, which we were just on. And why is it important at this stage to understand an exit plan? And what is an exit plan? What are some of the ways that you get out of business, and why is that something we even talk about at this point? Yes?
Sell their business to somebody else.
Okay, that's an option.
And the industry changes to something else for us on development.
Okay, and so what would our exit plan be?
To phase out before we're going to.
Okay, before you lose everything? Okay, credit?
Emerging
Emerging? Mergers?
with one competitor.
Okay. Or buy a competitor or sell out to a competitor?
Yeah.
What else? What are some other things that we may do to exit? Marvin? What might we do to get out of business? How do we get out of business?
You might pass away and pass it on to the family.
Yeah. Maybe families. Okay. Anybody? Yes.
I know it's a thing that mostly lawyers do, but they sell their list of clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and a lot of times people go into business with the intent on selling. You know, sometimes you develop a product and hope Google comes and grabs it, or, you know, whatever product it is that one of the big names comes and buys it. And most people, not most, but there's a very large percentage of the population that develops a product with the hope of Disney purchasing it, or you know, any of the toy makers or anybody. That is their sole purpose, and that's their exit plan. You know, what can I produce? What software can I produce? And just like we see on Shark Tank, when one of them says, yeah, I'll buy it, and we want to do this with it, you're like, have at it. Just tell me what I need to do or where to sign. But a lot of people develop software products for that purpose. Yeah.
There's this one guy, I'm not sure what his name is, but his job is basically he goes to like developing countries like India and so on and installs software and other things there with the only purpose to sell it to big companies that want to go into this development.
Yeah, and show that it already has stability,
Yeah.
they're already using
And
it, and don't you want it, walk away. I mean, we've seen that over and over again. You know, so yeah, that could be an action. It could be retirement, doesn't have to be death to pass it on. It could be liquidation. It could be sell out. It could be you just have to shut the doors and hope for the best. Okay. Why is it important to know that though? Why is it important to have an idea of how you're going to exit the business? You may need to, yeah. You may need to find out if those family members want to be burdened by your business and think it's as great as you do, okay? Or something could happen. You need to be thinking. But you know what? What most people have the hardest time with, it's harder to get out of business than it is, make the decision to get out of business than it is to get in. And why is that? Yeah. What's that?
Feeling of loss.
The feeling of loss, your own identity. When I sold my business, my mother used to always say, here's my daughter who owns her own business. I said, Mom, what are you going to call me now that I don't own my own business? I felt like I lost my identity. You know, and it does become your baby. You live and breathe it, and you put all this energy into it, and you keep thinking, let me just hang on a little bit longer, and we don't know when to get out of business at the right time. And usually it's after bankruptcy and you've lost everything that you finally say, okay. And you need to understand, don't get to that point. You know, I made sure I knew the industry was changing so drastically. I got out, and it was hard to do. Once you put the check on the table, it wasn't as hard. But it was really hard to do to sell my business because it was so much of who I was and my identity and everything else. And I put so much sweat and tears, I couldn't imagine not waking up doing that the next morning. And when is a good time to sell your business as far as the time of the year? You know, we talked about seasonality. Do we want, as the season's coming up, because people would want to buy it more, right? But do we sell it then? No, you make the money through that season and sell before you just went through a season of losing all the money. Okay? But that can be a hard sell. Somebody realizes they're getting ready to buy a business to go right into it when it's going to take up all their cash before they get there. Okay? So what you want to do, you always want to go out with the most money in your pocketbook. You don't sit around and wait until you've used up all your cash and it's starting to grow. Gosh, then you really say, well, gosh, let me go through one more season. So getting out of business, the timing, as far as seasonality, the timing to know it's a dying, I cannot get this business going anymore, understanding which method you want to take to get out of business, or what your initial plan was to get out of business. Was it to establish a nice strong name and sell the name only? Okay? Or sell the customer list? What was the plan there? Or what is the plan? Okay? And really that's pretty, I see it over and over again. People didn't get out of business in time. You know, get out where the going's good. Mark Siders has a saying when we're camping or fishing or whatever he's doing with his family. He say to the kids, "You still having fun?" And they say, "Yeah, get in the car, we're going home." Don't wait till they're bored to death and hating life, because you're never going to get them to go anyway again, right? So as long as you always leave when you're still having fun. So it's the same type of thing. Make sure that you get out when the getting is good. Don't wait till you lose everything. You guys know Mark Siders, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
His kids that. So some of the exit plans here, go public was one that we didn't mention. Acquisitions, I think Frederick alluded to that. Selling, a merger, buyouts, franchising. Maybe you want a franchise, okay? Hand it down or just actually close and end the operation, okay? And sometimes selling your business is very hard to do. My business, after I sold it, only lasted 2 more years. Why? What's that? Maybe. I mean, I'm not a one in a million, right? But
especially if it's a small business, people get related to the owner, like the consumers, and then all of a sudden everything.
The loyalty was to me. The loyalty was to the uniqueness that I was a woman running that type of automotives. All of that, and I couldn't sell that. And we call selling blue sky. And I sold a whole bunch of blue sky. Okay. Other places like the Chinese will not switch. Once they become loyal to working with people, they will not switch. My dad retired, and for 5 years after that, he still had to deal with the Chinese calling in the middle of the night and tell them, you need to call the office. I no longer am employed there. So a lot of times you need to make sure, what are you buying? Are you buying a good solid base of customers? Are you buying equipment? Are you buying a building? But you need to be careful. Am I buying a name that is associated with the owner of this only? And that's why a lot of times you don't name something Dan's Automotive. Okay? But how many times have you gone somewhere and you say, are you Dan? And they go, no. Well, who's Dan? Well, we don't really have a Dan anymore, but we weren't about to change the name. Dan sold out, but everybody knows it is Dan's. So you got to be careful how you name your business. Is it going to be something you can do? And I think the last part, which is important, is the marketing plan. I've been dying to say this. Do any of you online have any questions for me? What I got. Sorry. They call me often. We do a lot of emailing, so just to let them know what we're thinking about. Okay, the marketing plan and the sales strategy needs to be completely aligned with what? Your target market. I've got to know who those people are to be able to market directly to them. Right? We do that when we put advertisements on radio stations. If I'm advertising young people, I'm going to go to a radio station that young people listen to. Okay, so depending on what I'm targeting, I need to make sure my market plan and strategy align. So when we look at marketing plan, which all of you have probably done in marketing class, how do you make your customers aware of your product? What message are you trying to convey to your customers? And specific methods you use to deliver and reinforce that message, and how you secure actual sales. So we talk about your message. Okay? What are our 4 P's we talk about all the time in marketing? Yeah, our product, our price. So we talk about, when we're trying to get our message out, we talk about the 4 P's of marketing. We've got our product. What is it we're selling? The price, the cost advantage, the place, the location. Is it convenient? And is the decor appropriate? Promotion, the amount and nature of the market activities. What customers want is also what we need to consider. We talk about the 5 F's, and a lot of times we forget about these, but is what you're selling a function? How does the product or service meet our concrete needs, right? Yours is very functional. A lot of you are very functional in meeting needs. Finances. How will the purchase affect the overall financial situation? And freedom. How convenient is it? What is it that your customer wants? Is it financial? Is it functional? Is it freedom? Is it feelings? Is it the future? And we talk about, do you think and I can say this, not to be stereotypical, but because I'm a female in the automotive industry, when females go look at a car, do you think, for the most part, do they look at it the same way a male does? I hear all the time I say, how'd you end up with this car? Oh, I had a great sounding stereo and I love the color. Okay? Or it had, I could actually see over the steering wheel. But, and that's the extent of it. Now, what is a male gonna maybe that's more in tune, that we stereotypically think are more in tune to cars? What's that?
Horsepower.
Horsepower. And that was a woman that said that, I'll have you guys know. Okay? What else?
Gas mileage,
Engine size.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to look at it a little differently. Does it look like a girly car?
all-wheel drive,
Have you ever seen a guy and he's driving a car and you go, it's such a girly car. That guy's driving a girly car. Huh?
It must be his girlfriend.
It must be his girlfriend's car. You're hoping it is, right? So some cars get labeled as girly cars and some cars get labeled as more, as I could say, badass cars. And us women like badass cars as much as the men do. But, we're looking at different things. Some are looking for function in a car, right? Will it get me to my job? Others are looking at how good do I feel when I'm driving this car? Unfortunately, I have a little bit too much of that in me, because all my cars will get me anywhere I want to go, but that is not the point. They've got to I just got to feel good about them when I look at them, sit in them and cruising down the road. Okay, so some products will cross the line, and then finance play into that. I bought this car because it was inexpensive. It will get a function to get me to work, and I just feel good because it's a new car. Okay, so a whole different level. So you got to look at what your customer perceives you as when you're trying to sell to them, and then expound on that. If it's a feeling, then you need to really come in and make sure that's a feeling. If it's a functional thing, you need to make sure that you're really, hitting that home and appealing to their needs. Power of indirect messaging, I think we look at that in different ways. Can be even stronger impression with customers. Sometimes that's like promotion, that we, A lot of times, Chamber of Commerce has mixers with new people, or they'll do an opening for them. Nothing that you have to pay for from marketing-wise, but a reason to get yourself on the news. That cost you nothing, but boy, the whole valley saw it. Well, except for the people in this classroom, I saw it. How many saw it? Yeah, see? So that was free indirect marketing. Marketing vehicles. Okay, we've got lots of different marketing vehicles. They may not all be appropriate for your business or your target market or your budget. Okay, so I don't want to hear you say, I'm going to get in the newspaper, I'm going to get on the radio, I'm going to get a TV commercial, and I'm going to put a bulletin board at the movie theater, and I'm going to put, you know, signs out on I-5. Okay, now, I don't think I want to read about a sign on I-5, particularly about, what would I want to read a sign about on the highway for a type of business? Pets tombstones? I know, but some of them, I can't really think of one that I wouldn't want to see, but they're very expensive, okay? I always try to think, oh my gosh, all these commercials or these advertisements, even the stagnant ones that are at the movie theater, those things are outrageously expensive. And it's just like a one slide, you know, nobody's saying anything, just has your information. So yeah, that might be a great thing, but you might not be able to afford that. And is your target market the type of person who is going to be sitting in that movie theater? Not only do they go to the movie, but what else?
Watch the previews.
Or watch that particular movie. If I have a products for kids, I'm definitely going to put it up in, what is a kid movie out right now? Frozen? Okay. But if it's something for, you know, women, I'm going to maybe be in a chick flick thing or something. Yes, Addie?
Billboard, you kind of want to limit it to, it needs to be like your product can be explained really easily.
Sure.
You don't want too much detail, 'cause I hate that when I see signs. It's like they've got little extra things written in there or comments that
Sure.
it's like I can't read that when I'm driving.
Yeah. Yeah, and we usually see hotels that tell us which exit. We usually see restaurants that tell us an exit or the next, cheapest price before you cross the border at the next stop and stuff like that. So yeah, you need to be careful. Now in a big city, it's different. Lawyers put billboards up. You know, you want to sue somebody today? Call 1-800, you know. So, I mean, there's lots of reasons, but you may not have a reason for a billboard. And what about the newspaper?
What's that?
What's a newspaper?
What's a newspaper? You know, somebody said to me, their daughter, it's somebody that I went to school with and ended up teaching in one of my classes as well. And not her daughter, her son gave her the phone in this panic. Mom, what's the phone doing? And she listened and she looked at him and realized he had never heard a busy signal before, didn't even know what it was. And she went, oh my goodness, we have really come a long way. And you know, I remember when cell phones first came out, we would sit there for a long time and nothing was happening because you had to hit the send button. On a phone, you just dialed it and it just started ringing. And so we'd sit there for a long time. Why didn't anything? Oh, God, you got to hit a button. Okay? So advertising for different age groups can be crucial. Some people do still read the newspaper. They wouldn't still print it if they didn't. Some read it online, which is a little different. But you need to make sure you're advertising where your customer is going to see you, whether that's a website, whether it's the newspaper, whether it's the telephone book. Do we still get telephone books? So you really need to make sure that what you're selling matches how you're advertising it. Okay?
I think social media advertising is pretty much unbeatable right now.
Yes.
Because
But I mean, not for someone who's 80 years old, though.
that's true. But
Yeah.
for example, for him, for the barbershop,
Oh, yeah.
when I basically typed into Facebook and moved to Ashland, Oregon, there were a lot of advertisement for like basic things I need in a daily life that I would need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, I thought it so impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, but that would be a normal thing for someone your age, you know. We're now seeing, I I want to say it's happening fast, but I realize I'm getting older, that I talk to people and the way they communicate with their grandparents now is on web, Facebook to show pictures and stuff, and I'm thinking, I told y'all the story about my grandmother and the fax machine, right? Yeah, so Facebook would be way beyond. So, we're moving where your population is changing, but you also need to think about if it's a population that you're serving that has a low income, maybe they don't have access to online. I remember one time years ago, my godfather told me he was working at NASA in Houston, and he was part of the first man on the moon stuff, and he was in this station when all that happened. And he said that one time they decided that they were going to open up for a tour for underprivileged children to come to the museum. They did this whole thing. They were going to feed them all day. They had t-shirts for them. They had all this stuff. And they got the word out to everybody, and everything was great. And the day came, and guess what happened? Yeah, nobody could get there. They forgot to think about if they were that unprivileged that they did not have a way to get there, and not one person showed up. So you've really got to think about what you're doing and what market you're hitting. Are you making it convenient and possible for them to come to you? Okay. And that's one thing, with the tombstones of pets, we all have considered, no matter what our economic status is, our pets are part of our family, and we want to, in fact, people will take care of their pets before themselves now. And so I think, you need to appeal that maybe I have a tombstone that's of a different quality, but it can still be nice looking for someone of a lower income, and then the one that's higher. So you don't leave out that if you don't have money doesn't mean you don't have a need for your product. Now, some of you is financially driven. So we've got web pages, all the social media, brochures are still helpful. Putting brochures of healthcare in doctors' offices, putting brochures of tombstones in veterinarian offices, putting brochures of your gym. Where would you put a brochure of your gym? But where are the gyms? What? McDonald's. Where would you put it out in the community? What's that?
Vitamin shops.
Vitamin shops, yeah, good. Maybe even at schools now, because they're cutting, extracurricular activity. So think about where you're going to place things so that the right people see it. Brochures can be very costly. Just to randomly start putting them everywhere, you could miss your whole target market. So brochures are still very good. Websites, print media, broadcast media. Again, when you're broadcasting either through TV or radio, you need to make sure the channels and the stations that you're broadcasting on meet your target market. Online advertising specialties, coupons and stuff like that. Direct mail. Direct mail can be a little tricky. You can also now, with all today's technology, we have a place that's right across from the airport. Well, they'll send you labels and you give them the criteria. I only want people in this economic price range. I only want people that are this age, and they will give you, and they guarantee 90% of the list is good, which is very good because most of the time it's hard to keep up. So if you're going to send something out in the mail, it's not, well, I'll just send them in these three. I mean, you want to make sure, because that can be very spendy. Emailing, be careful emailing. What do we usually do? Yeah, I mean, we delete. It's the first thing I do every morning. There's probably some cool stuff. I get one from Kohl's. I get one from Bed Bath & Beyond. I get one from One Sale a Day and all these places. But most of the time, they never catch my eye unless I just happen to be at a time, well, I'll take a look at this. But that's very seldom I have the freedom to do that. So something really needs to catch my eye, or I never even open it. The first thing I do in the morning is I delete all that stuff and then see what's left. Then I go to student stuff, then I go to faculty stuff, then I go to administration. So be careful, email can be really tricky.
It's really risky.
It's cheap. It's cheap is why people do it, but what's that?
It's really risky though, like, I don't open anything from anybody I don't know, because you never know when it's gonna be like,
Right.
or like.
It
something else
is,
going on.
but there's gotta be enough, because it's so cheap to do. 1 or 2 sales must be worth it, because they don't stop. You know, and now they've started embedding coupons in it. And there's a new app I saw called Flips. I think it's FLIPPS. I think that's the name of it. Where you can actually go on, and while you're in a store, pull up any of their coupons or ads or anything. It's more interactive, and you can make your grocery list by pointing at items. Like, I need potatoes, you point at potatoes. It makes your grocery list. And I think what's going to happen is sooner or later is as we walk, I think there's going to be sensors. You remember I said this. There's going to be sensors, and as I walk, it's going to read from my grocery list, and it's only going to provide me information of the products I'm looking for about them as you walk down the aisles. You know, I think we're definitely getting there. You know, we're seeing coupons right there. We're seeing QR codes on everything. So I think we're getting there. And we can go in any store and scan it, right? We got scanners on our smartphones. You scan it, it automatically comes back and tells you you're at the wrong store. It's $10 cheaper down the road. You know, so think about, as a person selling something, how much easier. Before, it's like, do you want to drive all around town, or do you want to sit on hold asking everybody what their price is for something? And we do it right there. You could be standing at a car dealer, and it's happening a lot, and checking the other dealers and saying, no, I got it right here, I can just drive down. I mean, talk about powerful and really hard when you're on that other end. That information to customers is getting to them so fast, as quick as they want it. So you've got to make sure you're in that loop and not sitting on the outside of it. Public relations, sampling. Sampling's a big deal in some cases. Usually, you know, you sample something at Costco's big about that, right? You call it grazing. You know, let's go, we're hungry, let's go graze at Costco. But some of those products I would never try if they didn't give me a little sample. Wow, that was really good. Where is that? I want to buy that. So sampling can be really good in some cases. Also, building a portfolio of your business. If you've done some events, you take some great pictures of it. You know, visual is always great. Look at this. Wow. They really looked at every detail. The flowers were perfect. This was perfect. Everything was perfect. Where else do we see that a visual makes the difference on what we buy? We're starting to see it more and more. It used to be only at lower end establishments, and now we're seeing it more at higher end establishments. Restaurants. Is that what you're going to say?
Pictures of food.
Yeah, pictures of food. It used to be, if you got a picture of food, that was a low-end place. Now they're showing these gourmet dishes, and boy, does that, I want that. That looks really good. I don't know how something looks good, but somehow the look comes back to good and tasting good. And so pictures are a big thing. Also smell. Smell is a big thing. And I think we talked about popcorn, anything, having a nice smell when you come in. If I go to the daycare and it smells not so good, I'm not going to leave my animal there. Same with health places. They tell you if you're trying to find a facility, not so much home care, but a facility, the first thing they ask you is what was your initial smell of the place, and that's a big determination of whether you use that facility. You know, and so don't forget all the senses as well that you want to appeal to. All the market tactics there are listed. How do you want to strategically have partners, cooperative type advertising? I think we talked about this with the SIP, DIP, and ZIP. You know, are there ways you can market your product in with other people that make a nice package together? You split in the advertising cost, you split in the profits, and you find people you can partner with that complement your business. You know, hotels are great about when you walk in and the lobby is 5 million brochures on what you can go do in the area. Okay, and sometimes, you know, where did you get this brochure? We'll give you a discount type of deal. So partnering with other businesses is a great thing to do. So you can read all the different ways of promoting your sales structure. Your sales process, is it mail order, is it telephone, online, on-site, off-site, third-party selling? Are you going to do wholesale or retail? And I definitely would at least get a pencil and etch in some of these workbooks before you start writing your marketing plan, and kind of organizing your thoughts of what all you want to consider, because your marketing and your sales strategy are pretty important, and it can be overwhelming because there's so many avenues. So you really want to make sure, from a cost standpoint, that you're staying within your budget. But don't forget, that's usually the first part of a budget that goes is your marketing. And that's the last part of your budget that needs to go. You know, it's usually we've got this high cost at built-in advertising. We just can't do that because we have to pay our people. You know, that's understandable, but at the same time, if you don't keep marketing it, you're in a downward spiral. So be real careful. You may have to get creative about marketing if you're starting to lose money. Okay, so again, there's lots of workbooks in this particular thing about marketing and sales strategy. So make sure you look through those. Is there anything else we need to talk about today? Any questions? I want to give you some extra time because I think tonight your peer reviews due, or tomorrow night? Tomorrow by noon. So I'd like you to take a little bit of time here and do some good feedback. You won't get, it is going to be 150, 0. Okay? 100 means you gave lots of good, valuable feedback. 50 says you kind of, sort of did a little bit. And 0 means that feedback was not relevant or you didn't do it at all. Okay? So make sure the feedback that you give your peers, and you're going to do it through track changing. So what you're going to do, you're going to open up their industry, target market, and competitive analysis. You're immediately going to save it with your initials at the front. And then you're going to turn on track changes. There is a video on there how to do track changes in Word. And you're going to either scratch things out, add comment indicators, delete things, make suggestions, whatever you want to do. But not only do I want to see it covered, to what extent, I mean, some of it may not need attention, but what you've said. You know, looks good here, tried deleting this word, not sure this comma should go here, are fine things, but really some things about, did you think about, and what this is not clear, and what do you mean by this, and how does this relate to the industry type. I mean, I really want some thoughtful feedback, because you'll appreciate it yourself getting it, so make sure you give it to the other person as well. Ready?
And one simple question on the grades.
What's that?
On the grades?
Yes.
Are they all weighted the same?
No.
So because it looks like it.
No, they aren't.
Everything is like 100.
Because I do 100, but like the personal web page is 1%. If you look on the syllabus, I think they're weighted differently, aren't they? What this is worth 5%, this is worth 10%, your final paper's worth 50%. No, they are not all weighted the same. Okay? I think each of your drafts is weighted 2%, and each of your peer reviews is worth 2%. Yeah, the big parts are, I think the interview was maybe 10%, 15, and then you've got your final paper and your final presentation are the big ones. But you know, you miss enough drafts and enough peer reviews, they're going to add up. Yeah, and that's just to help you out anyway. So yeah, okay. Any questions? Okay, see you guys on Wednesday.